political opinion.
Benefits Britain has never been bigger.
The single mum with lots of kids.
4-bedroom house, 4 children, 4 different fathers.
The alcoholic drinking away his dole money.
Get drunk as a skunk. It's not Christmas.
The immigrant sponging off the state.
It's very, very easy to take benefit in England.
The cheat, the swindler.
The cheats who claim off the state, but still rake in a secret salary.
Whether Channel 4's Benefits Street, Channel 5's Benefits Britain, headlines in The Sun or the Daily Express. When it comes to stories about welfare recipients, the British media rely on a cast of cliche characters they recycle over and over.
Those narratives and those kind of images create and sustain divisions between deserving and undeserving populations, between kind of workers and shirkers, between welfare dependents and hardworking families. The whole setup of these programmes is around there being like a them and us.
You're telling everybody in this studio, and you're telling everybody who's watching right now, that we're mugs, that we're idiots and we're fools for going out to work. Because why don't we all just give up work and live on benefits?
They present the idea of a benefits culture and a benefits lifestyle, as if people on benefits are choosing to be there. And that language, that derogatory language, feeds into casual contempt for the poor.
Of course Kelly's going to be comfortable in the benefit system because she's got all this money coming in.
What we see is programmes like Nick and Margaret, We All Pay Your Benefits, which creates intentionally and very clearly a division between the idea of taxpayers and benefit recipients as enemies.
Britons have been fed stories about the flaws in their social benefit system for years. The tabloids were the first to discover the audiences for such stories, and by 2013, TV producers were tapping into that same market. The BBC's We All Pay Your Benefits came first. Similar offerings followed on other channels. Along with millions of viewers, the programmes attracted plenty of criticism for the exploitation of people's hardship, what has come to be known as poverty porn.
The term poverty porn is a pretty accurate reflection on this idea of watching poor people for entertainment and reading about poor people in newspapers when it's for entertainment as opposed to an actual insight into these people's lives.
I'd be quite offended if people thought that Benefits Britain was poverty porn, because Benefits Britain told the stories of people who lived their lives with limited resources.
No beef stock pot.
There's no reason why you shouldn't tell their story. If you're putting programmes out about people whose lives depend on benefits and who live in poverty, and those programmes rate well, then programme makers will just continue to make those programmes.
And that's exactly it. These programmes rate well. But do they actually portray reality? Take the benefits cheat trope. In the 2015-16 tax year, fraudulent benefits claims cost the British state £1.9 billion. The cost of tax evasion that year, £5.2 billion. Add into the mix tax avoidance at £1.7 billion, and you're at almost 4 times the cost of benefit fraud. And that doesn't begin to include wealthy Britons hiding their assets offshore or tax loss to the shadow economy. But the media, especially the tabloid press, disproportionately choose to direct our attention and outrage to the former, leaving high-income fraudsters, who are less telegenic and harder to find, in the shadows.
I would love to see, the flip side of that, and a television show about tax avoiders, that people are rinsing the system and dodging tax and so forth. The hypocrisy surrounding what they choose to put on TV screens, it will always target the most vulnerable.
As a programme maker, you always choose the best stories, the characters who will make the best television. In one case, we filmed with some Romanian roamers who'd come to the UK to claim benefits, often fraudulently, then took British benefits back to Romania and built themselves a home.
I'm gonna take benefit from England, yeah? England is one country with much money.
We shouldn't shy away from stories that are true stories just because they are sensational or the contributors are outrageous in some way.
Thank you so much, England.
So long as the context is there, then that should be fine.
The really key areas of misrepresentation are around the day-to-day lives of people in receipt of out-of-work benefits, and how far that's kind of characterised by maybe idleness and inactivity and kind of active choosing to be on benefits. People routinely are really trying very hard to get into paid work when and where that's like a realistic option.
The British welfare state, the provision of education, childcare, health and homes, came about after the Second World War, designed to ensure a good standard of living from the cradle to the grave. While popular at the outset, by the late 1970s, much of the rhetoric from politicians and the press was anti-welfare. Social security was depicted as a burden on the state, not a citizen's right. The explosion of reality TV programmes about benefits has only made this image worse.
Some benefits claimants have been transformed by these programmes into celebrities, media stars, and a mini-industry has since grown around them. Take Barry Tomes, a PR agent who saw an opportunity in the new genre and took it. He has a book of clients who are on benefits, and he says when journalists and TV producers need help with some kind of benefit story, they call him. His clients can be offered anywhere between £150 to £25,000 for a story, and Barry takes a cut. He also told us that misrepresentation is a big part of the game.
Any story that looks like a benefit recipient is spending big money. That's the key. So just take one of our clients, Marie Buchan's a good example. Marie Buchan hadn't been in the press for a while and she wanted a horse. I said, people are going to go nuclear about you having a horse.
A lot of people watching Marie, I know will be saying, you've got 8 children, why on earth would you want to have a horse that's going to cost you so much money? Why
Everybody comes to the conclusion that a horse must cost thousands of pounds. So actually the facts that were printed were nothing like the truth, but I was happy to run with that because that's what we do. I don't decide if it's fact or fiction, that's for the publisher to decide.
As an exclusive...
Some might call it fake news. And this media myth-making has a potentially more detrimental impact on politics. Since the financial crisis 10 years ago, cuts to welfare have been a constant feature of government policy. To sell those policies, politicians often rely on the same kind of stereotypes that TV producers and newspaper publishers do.
What we've got is these programmes that are setting themselves up as journalism, giving Tory politicians more ammunition in order to put through brutal legislation.
If you don't have sanctions, essentially you don't have conditionality and you don't change behaviour.
Tabloid headlines have led to debates in the House of Commons with, for example, George Osborne talking about how taxpayers are subsidising these lifestyles. And this was after the Daily Mail headline, "Vile Product of Welfare UK." It's setting an agenda that the problem is people who exist in poverty, not an economic crisis or not austerity.
Because of people like Marie, that's why we do have to bring a benefits cap in.
In a country where social security cuts are having a real impact on people in need, a media industry has grown, creating its own set of beneficiaries. It is the publishers, producers, PR agents and politicians who reap the benefits. You could call it irresponsible, or, to use a term the media usually reserve for those on benefits, shameless.